talk about a little bit of chapter 2 today, all right? Now, we're creeping along, but y'all have got to have 5 chapters read for Monday, okay? Now, hopefully you read the end of chapter, or the rest of chapter 1 and got into chapter 2, but just to kind of, get us all on the same page here, figuratively and literally, right? We have Phoebe, who is Janie's best friend, and she's going to go over and she is going to, find out what's been going on. Janie's been missing for like 18 months, y'all. And, no word from her, so she's pretty curious, as are the rest of the porch lookers, right? How do the porch lookers, those folks that are watching her come into town, how do they respond to Janie? Oh, yes, they do. And Janie is looking, she's gorgeous. So, you can take a really beautiful person and you can put them in some scruffy clothes, but they're still going to be beautiful. Okay? And she's one of those people, right? But, she's looking a little rough. And they're real curious. And the women seem to be even kind of hopeful that something has happened to bring her down a notch or two, okay? So, chapter 2, look at about the 3rd page, and in my book, it's page 10, so, that may also be a similar page for you guys. Oh, you know what? If Aiden, there is a book under Allie's desk, okay? All right, look for a paragraph that starts with, "It was a spring afternoon in West Florida." Okay? It's about 3rd page of chapter 2. Everybody there? Yes? Okay. So, Janie, in chapter 2, starts telling about, her childhood. And then she goes into this passage where she's your age. She's 16. I know some of y'all have turned 17, okay? But she's about your age. And what you need, girls?
I love my purse.
Oh, I don't see it, but you're welcome to look around. Y'all see a purse laying around that I would have just thought it was Aiden's. You're welcome. Is that a no or a yes? Did you find it?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay, that's kind of scary. All right, well, good luck. Okay. All right, so anyway, back to Florida, and Janie is 16. So, here we go. It was a spring afternoon in West Florida. Janie had spent most of the day under a blossoming pear tree in the backyard. She had been spending every minute that she could steal away from her chores under that tree for the past 3 days. That was to say, ever since the first tiny bloom had opened. Okay, now, before I get into this next passage, a lot of Janie's emotions are gonna be described in terms of imagery, especially imagery that has to do with nature, okay? And this next section or so, paragraph and a half, it's pretty sexual. I'm not going to explain it because that would be inappropriate, but you probably gonna figure it out, okay? So she is daydreaming, looking up at these branches on this pear tree and looking at the flowers in bloom. And okay, here we go. Let's see. It had called her to come and gaze on a mystery. From barren brown stems to glistening leaf buds, from the leaf buds to snowy virginity of bloom, it stirred her tremendously. How? Why? It was like a flute song forgotten in another existence and remembered again. What? How? Why? The singing she heard that had nothing to do with her ears. So it's like she hears something, but it's not, it's not actually audible. It's a feeling, right? And she can't quite figure out what it is or put her finger on it, right? The rose of the world was breathing out smell. It followed her through all her waking moments, and it caressed her in her sleep. It connected itself with other vaguely felt matters that had struck her outside observation and buried themselves in her flesh. Now they emerged and quested about her consciousness. She was stretched on her back beneath the pear tree, soaking in the alto chant of the visiting bees, the gold of the sun and the panting breath of the breeze. When the inaudible voice of it all came to her, she saw a dust-bearing bee sink into the sanctum of a bloom, and the thousand sister calyxes arched to meet the love embrace, and the ecstatic shiver of the tree from root to tiniest branch, creaming in every blossom and frothing with delight. Now, again, very sexual imagery, and I can't explain it. I think you understand it, right? But if you didn't get that, she says this. So this was a marriage, okay? She'd been summoned to behold a revelation. So she understands something she didn't understand before, right? Then Janie felt a pain, remorseless sweet, that left her limp and languid. Now, in case you think this is all in my head, okay, and I'm a dirty old woman, I mean, I might be, but I didn't write this. Think about that funny old-fashioned way that we describe the sex talk that your parents have hopefully had with you. The birds and the bees. Keep that in mind, okay? After a while, she got up from where she was and went over the little garden field entire. She was seeking confirmation of the voice and vision, and everywhere she found and acknowledged answers. A personal answer for all other creations except herself. She felt an answer seeking her, but where? When? How? She found herself at the kitchen door and stumbled inside. In the air of the room were flies tumbling and singing, marrying and giving in marriage. Probably the love bugs that you see, you know what I mean? What, Aiden?
What page are you on?
11 in my book. I don't know. Hold your book up. Who's got the pear tree on the front? Anybody? Still on 11. Aiden. Okay. All right. After a while, she got. Oh, I already did that, didn't I? Hang on. Aiden interrupted me. Let me see where I couldn't find my pleasure. All right. When she reached the narrow hallway, she was reminded that her grandmother was home with a sick headache. Her grandmother was lying across the bed asleep, so Janie tipped on out the front door. Now, highlight this also. Oh, to be a pear tree, any tree in bloom, with kissing bees singing of the beginning of the world. She was 16. She had glossy leaves and bursting buds, and she wanted to struggle with life, but it seemed to elude her. Elude means it's like right out of reach, okay? Where were the singing bees for her? So when she says, "Where are my singing bees?" what is she asking? Where the boys, right? I mean, she lives on a farm outside of town with her grandmother, and she's looking around for the singing bees for her, and there are no singing bees, right? Nobody on that farm. And it goes into that too. Nothing on the place nor in her grandma's house answered her. She searched as much of the world as she could from the top of the front steps, and she went on down the front gate and leaned over to gaze up and down the road. Looking, waiting, breathing short with impatience, waiting for the world to be made. So she's waiting for life to start, right? Now, through the pollinated air, she saw a glorious being coming up the road. In her former blindness, she had known him as shiftless Johnny Taylor, tall and lean. But that was before the golden dust of pollen had beglamored his rags and her eyes. So this fella, who she's never really thought about before, all of a sudden is starting to look pretty good, okay? So make a note. When Janie is happy or possibly truly in love, the description starts to go into these natural images, especially like the golden dust of pollen being sprinkled around the world, right? When the golden dust of pollen gets sprinkled around Janie, that means she's in love. So look for that, okay? Look for that. All right, now, in the last stages of Nanny's sleep, she dreamed of voices. Voices far off but persistent and gradually coming nearer. Janie's voice. Janie talking in whispery snatches with the male voice she couldn't quite place. That brought her wide awake. She bolted upright and peered out of the window and saw Johnny Taylor lacerating her Janie with a kiss. All right, might want to highlight that last line in there. Lacerating her Janie with a kiss. So, all right, so Janie gets her first kiss. And it's innocent. I mean, it's just a kiss, right? And it's her first kiss. But Nanny sees this. And she doesn't know that it's the first kiss, right? And she's going to take it almost as a violent act, right? What does it mean to have like lacerations? Anybody watch those hospital shows?
Deep cut.
Yeah, cuts. So lacerating her Janie with a kiss shows that she's reading his act as aggressive and possibly, he's up to no good and maybe he's a user, whatever you want to call it, right? And she's going to jump to major conclusions. Okay? And that's going to be a problem. And it's going to set us up for the rest of the story as well. Okay? So y'all have about 10 minutes because you didn't need to sign up for the ACT stuff. Or maybe you did. And y'all can read, but pick up wherever you left off. And if you hadn't gotten through that part in chapter 2, go back because there will be a question that's covering the stuff that we skipped. And then, of course, you got to read through 5, do what you can. And if you still need to sign up for the ACT stuff, go ahead and do that right now because Miss Eason is very stressed out about that, okay? I don't want to add to that. All right, you got about 10 minutes. No talking, reading, marking it up, looking for that gold pollen.